What's up, haters? It's your boy back to you again to report that we have migrated away from S3. Every month I get billed 2 cents. 2 cents that end up in the coffers of Jeffrey Bezos. As an exercise, I have migrated from S3 by implementing Minio. Minio is an object storage alternative that promises parity with the S3 API. They seem to recreate even the bugs and even the crummiest parts of the S3 API. Today, I want to share a few specifics about how I went through it. So this is a website that you've already seen before. It's called Pixie and I developed it on Ruby on Rails. And back in the day, this uses S3 for file uploads. However, now, you go here, you can post images to it. See? And there we go. And the images are stored in my own computers. I have a Kubernetes cluster with 7 computers, where each one of those has 8 gigabytes of storage. After you take away all of the Kubernetes, Docker, and the operating system stuff, so I've noticed that I end up with around 4 gigabytes of free storage. And if you think about it, it's 28 gigabytes of storage that are doing nothing. So I figured, why not, instead of having to depend on S3, not move to local storage? And we did. So first of all, I installed Minio using the Helm chart. In Helm, there's several charts for Minio, but I used the community version here, Austinized Minio official. So all of the configuration options are very well explained over here. And this is the incantation that works for me. So I configured the Minio agent to run with at least 512 megs of free memory, 6 replicas because I want to leave the master node unoccupied. I don't want the master node to be part of the swarm. Persistence enabled true, distributed mode, and you configure a root user and a root password, which are the access key and the secret that you get from AWS are going to be now your user and your password. Then you use the local path storage class, which is the storage class that you get from K3s. I asked it to create persistent volumes and PVCs of 2 gigabyte size. TLS enabled true, cert secret, and trusted cert secret. Through the magic of actually running it beforehand. So once you install the chart, so Minio will stand up several different pods. You can see here. And so it manages the interconnection between all of the pods and getting them in the mesh. I am currently using self-signed certificates. For Minio, they offer a tool which gives you the ability to generate certificates for Minio. One caveat of this is that, of course, since the certificates are not from an actual CA, then they're getting flagged by browsers. So I'm currently browsing this website, but because I added an exception, and I'm going to fix it so it uses Let's Encrypt certificates, so things are not blocked, right? Surgeon is available here, and it explains how to create certificates that you place in Kubernetes secrets. So I generated it with duration, a lot of hours, and all of the hosts in the internal mesh, right? Corresponding to all of the pods that are going to be talking to each other, because I use this self-signed certificate for the ingress and for all of the communication among pods. So once you do that, you get a public cert and a private key, which you then place into a Kubernetes secret through kubectl create secret generic. I name it Minio TLS, and I use the private and public files. The other secret is for the trusted certs, because Minio internally uses it to validate self-signed certificates. And you place the CA certificate, it takes the CA certificate from the public CRT file. You can create secret Minio trusted certs. Then You do this incantation. They are referenced here, right? So next, once you stand up the API with your certificates, you have to talk to it. As a quick workaround, and I mean, I shouldn't be using this, but I am right now. So I enable the node port service type. Minio service is of type node port. If you edit the manifest, it's gonna be here. Node port, and I expose it with 32,000, which I port forward from the internet to the port 32,000 in my LAN in this machine. Okay, so now that you have everything in place, well, you can configure, you can access the Minio system. There's a UI which literally looks like the S3 console, but you know how we do things around here. We use the CLI. So you can do MC alias set, and I'm gonna point it to my host. And now this is where you enter the access key and the secret that you got from your original setup here, right? So I'm not gonna set it up because I already set up one, but this is how it looks. Oh, and I forgot. So I am currently, again, I am using the exceptions to not validate the certificate. Ideally, you shouldn't do that. But this is because this is a proof of concept, because I am still using the self-signed certificates. So the name of the bucket that I created is IMG. You can create a bucket with MC, MLB, and then the name of your bucket, right? Then MC anonymous set Pixie download. Download Pixie, sorry. So you have to set up, for an application like this, you have to set up the permissions to download. So the bucket is publicly accessible to download files, but so that people cannot upload content to it. They don't have the credentials anyway, so they wouldn't be able to, but you know what I mean. So anyway, so now that you have your quote-unquote access tokens, so now whatever way you're passing them to your application, so just modify that so it passes your Minio user and your Minio password. My Rails application looks like this. This is how I configure Paperclip, which is the attachment library. I had to set up S3 permissions public red, and I had to set S3 hostname, right? And the S3 options hash. For some reason, apparently S3 options is not documented anywhere on the internet. So this is what I managed to find from GitHub issues and whatnot. You can configure the endpoint, and this endpoint is going to use the Minio addresses. I set it up in an environment variable, and for me it looks like this, which is the internal DNS name that Kubernetes assigns to the Minio service. Inside Kubernetes, again, there's simulated networking. So services are exposed through a local DNS server, and it looks like this, right? Port 9000, because the service and the pods expose port 9000. I am using node port to have something to port forward to. Minio doesn't have a notion of region, but I just enter whatever in the AWS region environment variable, pointed to the im bucket, which I show you how to create a bucket, but you can name it whatever you want if you want to create a bucket on your own. And alright, so I set up the environment like this, then I deployed it. A few other things that I needed to do. I don't know if this was truly necessary, but I noticed that Paperclip was not generating the correct URLs unless I set up S3 hostname on the post partial. So I delegated the URL. Before I was calling post.image, so now there's a .url helper that I am using to get the URLs. So once I changed it to URL, it started generating things correctly for me. So yeah, it's pretty satisfying to see something running completely locally. This doesn't use cloud stuff anymore. So this is how the link looks. And so the files are exposed on the internet. So that's how it looks like. I recommend getting into Minio because, again, there's money you may be leaving on the table. The cloud is convenient, but there's this implicit factor of lock-in, vendor lock-in. And do you really want to be locked in to S3 forever? Is it that difficult to actually manage storage? Object storage is one of the earliest applications of Kubernetes that I can remember hearing about. Back in the day, Minio, matter of fact, is compatible with like Kubernetes 1.3 or something. It's kind of like a very obvious application of Kubernetes, just to mount an object storage API in front. You could just get several drives, just arrange them in a RAID array, and you're off to the races, right? Post them with Minio. Minio handles all of the nitty-gritty of taking all of the drives and combining them into a single volume and scaling it up and scaling it down and all of that jazz. So let me know what you think. I am a big adept of the cloud exit movement because I think, again, you shouldn't be completely dependent on cloud and stuff like that, even though it pays my bills. And even though it is also a good field to be working in, why not actually make a cloud yourself?